Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And it's always fun when we get to do these shows. We love talking to all our guests when they come on, but it's always fun to also do the shows when either the three of us get to cruise. And I'd like to welcome back to the show Christy from Pack Your Pixie Dust and Chris from Los Angeles. How are you guys doing today?
So good, because I am the subject of today's interview.
You are in the hot seat.
I get to be in the hot seat, and it's going to be so much fun.
And I should have run with some kind of Star Wars reference, but I had like 5 hours of sleep last night, and I'm just kind of at a blank as far as it goes. But this was a Star Wars day at sea, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Star Wars day at sea, sailing out of Port Canaveral on the beautiful Disney Fantasy. Steve, you've trained me to now only refer to the ship names with the word beautiful in front of them, because that's how you refer to the ship names. So now I'm like, the beautiful Disney Wish, which hasn't even been made yet, or the beautiful Magic, or the beautiful Wonder. But I was sailing on the beautiful Disney Fantasy out of Port Canaveral on a 7-night Eastern Caribbean itinerary on February 8th.
Sometimes we're lucky enough at the last minute to book something. Christy, I know you guys do that sometimes, where you see something and you jump on it last minute and go. But this was your guys' sailing for the year that you were really planning on it, right? You and Seth?
We had this booked, I want to say, somewhere in the 400 or 500 day in advance range. So
Nice.
we really planned this. We knew it would become a Star Wars day at sea just because history repeats itself. But when it was announced it wasn't Star Wars, we were just sort of like, we're going to book that because we know it will be a Star Wars day at sea. And one thing I will add to this one is we picked it specifically because it was sailing an atypical Eastern Caribbean itinerary. So most Disney Cruise Line itineraries that are Eastern Caribbean stop in, St. Thomas and Tortola. Is that right, Christy?
Yes.
It's like St. Thomas, Tortola, and Castaway Cay. And this one was stopping in San Juan and Tortola. And it's not that we didn't want to see St. Thomas. That would have been cool. But we wanted to go to Puerto Rico, and we were pretty excited about that. So this was the only Star Wars Day at Sea sailing that would have done that. So that's specifically why we picked it.
They had a earthquake about a month, 6 weeks or so before your cruise. So I'd be curious to hear if you notice any differences or any issues as a result of that. So we'll get to that when we get to that subject.
Yeah, I can flag it super quick and just say that there were a bunch of earthquakes happening all around the region, or specifically on the other side of Puerto Rico from where we were. So it had no impact on San Juan. There was no structural damage there, and everything functioned normal.
Awesome.
But people in our cruise group were nervous. There were people in our Facebook group who were like, I hope we don't go to San Juan. But I was like, this is why we booked this cruise. I want to go to San Juan. That was one thing that people thought might have an impact, but it didn't.
So looking at your itinerary too, it leaves out of Port Canaveral, and we'll get to the beginning of the cruise here in just a second. But it leaves out of Port Canaveral. You get 2 days at sea, Tortola, San Juan, day at sea, Castaway Cay. It's a little bit different than like the one that we went on. We had 3 days at sea, and then you go bam, bam, bam with the 2 ports, and then over to Castaway Cay. So I kind of like that itinerary where you have that day at sea between San Juan and Castaway Cay as well.
With the cruise, who went with you on this cruise?
So it was my husband, Seth, and my mother-in-law, Seth's mom. We were super excited to be able to take this family vacation. Disney cruising has sort of become a tradition for the three of us. Lisa has been on one Disney cruise with us before, and so we were excited to get to go on this Disney cruise with her again. And we booked one room. So if anyone ever has any questions about what it's like for 3 grown adults to stay in one of those veranda rooms, I can tell you.
Well, let's have a little chat about that right now. How about?
Yeah. So I think if you have 3 adults, it can feel pretty cost prohibitive to book another room just for that one other adult, right? But the barrier to that is that those rooms are not probably designed for 3 adults to sleep in them. The pull-down bed or the couch bed are not as comfortable as the queen size bed that's in every room. I will tell you that for whatever reason, I get the best sleep of my life on Disney cruises. Like, I lay down at night and then I wake up the next morning as if I had never been more rested. And I think it might be because of the rocking of the ship. But sometimes I would feel like a pang of guilt thinking like, oh no, Lisa's on this couch and maybe isn't as comfortable. So one thing that we did on our first cruise with Lisa and on this cruise with Lisa is we asked our room steward to bring some extra padding for the bedding. So they get like one of those egg crate things. And every time we've asked, they've been able to do it. So I don't want to promise you that Disney can or always will do this, but they've done it every time we've asked. And they just sort of make the bed a little bit more comfortable knowing that an adult is sleeping on it. So yeah, that would be one thing I would flag for everyone that was slightly different about our cruises. We had 3 adults sharing one veranda room, and I couldn't even tell you which category it was. It was like a deck 6 midship veranda. Right next to the elevator, Steve. You would have loved it.
I love it. Easy access into and out of your room. I love it.
Uh-huh.
So how tall is your mother-in-law, just out of curiosity, as far as sleeping on the bed that when they turned the couch into a bed? That was no problem with her?
Yeah, and I don't think that she was like too tall for it. I think I tried laying on it one morning just to see, and I would be having to sleep in the fetal position. I don't think that was an issue for her. I more so just wanted to make sure that, you know, she felt comfortable. And since, you know, this was her annual vacation, just like it was ours, I don't want her to feel like, you know, she wasn't getting that like full experience. So that's why I always pull the room steward aside and say, hey, any chance we can get more padding and more comfortable bed? And every time the room steward has been able to do it.
Well, just to put it into perspective, I'm 5'7", and I can fit on the bed pretty easily. Chris, you're quite a bit taller than me, and so
I'm 6'2". Yeah.
So if you're 6'2", planning as an adult, planning to sleep on that bed is going to be a little bit too small. But if you're 5'7", more my size, miniature, whatever you want to call it, you will fit on that bed just fine. So, anyways, Chrissy, go ahead. You had a question.
Did your mother-in-law share a room with you the last time you cruised together as well?
As well, yeah. We did that every time. I think if we ever sailed with 4, even if the room could technically sleep 4 adults, we would for sure get a second cabin. It's just, for those of you who don't know, most cruise lines require double occupancy. There are a couple of cruise lines that have what they call like studio rooms or like single occupancy cabins where they are meant for only one person to sleep in them. But the vast majority of cruise lines, if you book one room and only one person staying in it, they still have to pay for that second person, even though they're not there.
They pay everything but the port charges for that person.
Right, exactly. Including tips, right?
No, you don't have to tip. The tips
you don't have to double. There's no double gratuity. Okay, good to know. But still, our thought was like, or do we want to pay double the price for this? If all we're really talking about is like maybe slightly improved comfort. And in the end, we settled on like, no, we should share the room. It's going to be fine. And I think it was. Honestly, there was always something to do. Disney also has the split bathroom, which if you think that's great for a family with kids, let me tell you, it's real great for a group of adults to have a little bit of extra privacy and to be able to like use the restroom and shower all at the same time. So I say like Disney's pretty well set up for this. I do think, and you two DVC members could tell me even better, but I do think that there are great advances in those bonus mattresses that Disney has found ways of hiding all over the DVC rooms. Every time I've ever toured a DVC room, the tour guide will be like, and here's a cupboard, just kidding, it's a bed. And it's like, it's like, Disney's very, very, very good at hiding beds in places now. And back when these ships were built, maybe not so good at that. And I think hopefully for the Wish, they will find ways to make those bonus mattresses more comfortable for grown people because
good point.
I'll be honest, they're not that comfortable. They're not they're nowhere near as comfortable as that queen bed. That queen bed literally gives me the sleep of 1,000 years. I'm straight up Aurora on every cruise I've ever been on.
That's a lot of good information. I've never really thought about it, as far as traveling with adults in the room. So that's a lot of really good information, Chris.
I try.
Well, let's turn to the start itself. You and Seth live in Los Angeles. I'm not sure where your mother-in-law lives, but you guys all make your way to Florida. Where did you stay the night before, and did you guys do anything at Walt Disney World before the cruise? What did you guys do?
Yes, and I'm so excited to talk about it, but since we're a DCL podcast, I'll limit myself. So we stayed at the Contemporary. I know Christy's like, why the Contemporary? There's not very much Disney theming, but we stayed at the Contemporary.
I'm going to say that.
Well, last time I told you we were staying at the Contemporary, your first question was why?
Well, because I feel like the boardwalk is more adult, but your reason for staying at the Contemporary is perfect. But otherwise, it's kind of out of the way. I mean, if you were going to go to Disney Springs, it takes a long time to get there. There's some other reasons why that wouldn't be your top choice, except for where you were going that night, which kind of makes it the perfect top choice.
Literal perfect top choice, which is true. We also had it on our bucket list. We wanted to stay at the Contemporary once. I think, truthfully, Seth and I probably would prefer a little bit better Disney theming, because the Contemporary is more like, look at us, we can be modern, but also.
And what does their definition of modern even mean? I don't even understand.
Yeah, because also you're like, wait a minute, is wedge and large mosaic tiles of children modern? I'm not sure. But anyway, we stayed there, and we didn't even stay in the main tower. We stayed in the garden wing. The reason we did it is because we bought tickets to go to the after-hours party at Magic Kingdom. And for those of you who don't know, it won't always be like this, but right now, the Contemporary is the only resort that has a walking path to Magic Kingdom. They're building a walking path right now at the Grand Floridian, but it doesn't exist yet. So when the Contemporary is so close and walkable, it makes it super convenient to go to those after-hours parties. And we were literally flying in. Our flight landed at 4. We checked into the hotel at 5, and the party started at 7. So we very quickly had dinner at Contempo Cafe, and then it was time to go to the Magic Kingdom for the party at 7. So, and the party technically starts at 9 when the park closes, but they let party goers in at 7 to watch the to watch the fireworks. We did that. The park seemed very crowded because we were, going on a Friday night. But as soon as the fireworks were over, the park emptied out, and we were able to basically walk on every ride we wanted. And there was a lot of fun for me and Steve, villains theming. Christy, you would have hated it. There were literally villains everywhere. Also, Christy, I thought of you distinctly because there's a show. I don't want to spoil this. So for people who are going, fast forward 30 seconds or something, but I have to tell you this. There's a show where all the villains come together to destroy the world, and in the end they succeed.
What?
there's no Mickey moment where Mickey's dun dun dun.
Saves the world.
Yeah, it's literally 5 villains are when the 5 planets unite, we will be able to destroy the world. And then at the end of the show, the 5 planets unite, and that's the end. And I was like, oh, we're going dark, Disney. Okay.
That's awful.
But people loved it, didn't they? Everybody that was there loved it.
Literally, we were screaming. We were like, yes! Yes, Hades!
This is the worst. And we texted about it the other day, but now my wine and dine race is going to be villains, and I don't even know if I want to do it anymore.
Well, you know my opinion. They had the Maleficent dragon from the Festival Fantasy Parade, going around at night, though she doesn't blow fire anymore, which I don't know if that's just the last 2 times I've been there, but in January and February of this year, that dragon did not blow fire every time I saw it. So, bummer. But yeah, the party was great. It ended at midnight. We walked back to our hotel. We got plenty of sleep. We decided that since it was a 7-night cruise, we were just going to let Disney take care of transportation. We slept in. We started our cruise life right by having the buffet at the, what is it called? The Wave of American Flavors, which is a mouthful for a restaurant. But that's the restaurant at the Contemporary. That's not Chef Mickey's or the really nice restaurant, California Cuisine a la de la. But the Big Wave was fine. It was definitely a nice precursor buffet to cruise food. And they were super accommodating of my food allergies. So I thought it was great. We took the buses to get to Disney World, which we've never done. We've never done Disney transportation from Disney World to the port.
What time did you arrive?
We arrived at the port just before 1, I would say, maybe 12:40.
Going on a 7-night cruise, what's your guys' perspective on that? Because as we've talked about on this show many times, Disney's transportation, it's not going to generally get you there right as the port opens. So do you feel like, what's your perspective on that? Do you want to be on the ship right away like some people do? Or are you happy to get on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
My perspective is that if you get to the port at like 10 or 11 a.m., like as early as you possibly can, you will do waiting. You will be waiting in the area. You can take pictures with Mickey and, there's like cartoons playing and stuff like that. Your friend from England, Steve, who is that? Our
John,
loyal listener.
Towlers.
Yeah, the Towlers. I remember John being like, I hated the layout and design of the terminal.
Yes,
and so I went to the terminal distinctly trying to see if I agreed. And I was like, I don't know, John. I don't have strong feelings for or against, but it's fine. I like that we're all passionate about different things. When I was there, though, the first time I did have to wait because we did the whole thing of like, we're getting there as early as possible on our first cruise out of Port Canaveral and the whole thing. And this time I was like, from what I hear, if you get there later, you can basically walk right on the ship and you don't have to do the whole waiting game. And Mickey is there still to take pictures, but this time you don't have to wait in a line. So it's like, in my mind, the better thing was to at least try this out. And on a 7-night, do you really care if you're on the ship, 2 hours later than some people?
Yes.
I personally didn't, though I can see that some other folks might. And I think it's just a matter of preference, asking yourself what's most important for you.
So for us, I don't want to wait, but I also don't want to get there at 1:30. So that's just a matter of timing it a little bit better. But the convenience of the Disney transportation, there is something to be said about that.
Yeah. And
did you find
honestly,
it convenient?
I did find it convenient. We did have to go stop at Fort Wilderness to pick up some more people. But it was just one stop after ours. And then we were on our way. They play like a fun little video with trivia and like very outdated scenes from Disney Cruise Line's history. I'm like, they definitely need to update this because they're like referencing things that don't even exist anymore. And they were like heavily highlighting the wave phones, which made me laugh because I'm like, these wave phones, I think the Wish is going to come up with something new on that front because it's pretty rare that you see people using the wave phones unless their kids don't have cell phones and they need. And then even then I'm like, what are these kids walking around with literally like a Saved by the Bell style cell phone?
It's not that big.
No, I'm just saying these wave phones feel like an antiquated part of our past that Disney is like still holding on to. But I digress.
Says the millennial of our group.
I digress. I know now I'm the Towler for wave phones.
It's the golden age of cruising, Chris, with the wave phone.
Yeah, everyone loves those wave phones. I love how, too, in the video, they're like, your wave phone will even work on Castaway Cay. And I was like, cool. But it's fine. I liked that I felt like I was in the Disney bubble from start to finish, which, again, is for some people, they're like totally agreeing with me. And for other people, they're like rolling their eyes because who really cares about the Disney bubble? But apparently I do. I like it. So would I do it every time? Probably not. Are there times on a 3-day cruise or even a 4-day cruise? I would be there at like 9 a.m. being the first in because I want my buffet.
Okay, that's a bit extreme.
But on a 7-night, when I knew I had like multiple sea days, I think I had 3 sea days on this one. I was like, I'm down to just arrive when they get me there. And then when we got up to Cabanas, it was literally a nightmare. There were literally no seating. It was super crowded. It was all of that. But like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of worth just dealing with the initial rush. For me, this time was fine.
Could you have still gone to the sit-down restaurant that they offered?
We would have had like a half hour before it closed. So we could have, but we didn't choose to.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Okay.
Oh, the reason we didn't, though, is because my mother-in-law loves carrot cake, and they only serve carrot cake at Cabanas on the first day. So we were like, we have to go up to Cabanas because we have to get this carrot cake, which it was so funny because she went and got carrot cake at the same time that I was going to get my dessert, and I had already grabbed her like 2 additional carrot cakes. So we were very carrot caked out, but that was just like something more of a personal preference for us.
Okay, so this being a Star Wars Day at Sea, and this was your first time on the Fantasy too, right, Chris?
Yeah, my first Fantasy.
The beautiful Disney Fantasy. So being a Star Wars Day
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, I do that. I know. I totally do that. This being a Star Wars Day at Sea, I know it's just one day that's really Star Wars. Did they kind of put you in the mood ahead of time? Like, as you were getting on board the ship, did they have, like, some Star Wars laminates on the windows, or was there anything in the atrium? Did they set the tone at all before that day?
There is like a rather expensive looking sign where you can like pose in and around the word Star Wars. And then there is it's like Star Wars Day at Sea themed. And then there is also like a Han Solo frozen in carbonite like photo op that's in the lobby. But that's all. There's nothing else that's like explicitly Star Wars on that first day or any subsequent days. They do have like on non-Star Wars days, they have meet and greets with Star Wars characters because they're so popular. But those were all like hidden, tucked away in the restaurants, and you wouldn't know that they were even happening unless you had tickets for them.
So did you have to get tickets ahead of time for those?
Yeah, you like reserve tickets ahead of time when you check in.
And that's offered more than just on the Star Wars Day at Sea day?
Yeah, because there's no way the number of people who want to get pictures could if they only had slots on that day.
Well,
So
when I did my Star Wars Day at Sea, they did it that way. So maybe that was the reason that more people wanted in, because
They're complaining. I bet.
Yeah. We
So
only
just-
had Star Wars on Star Wars.
Just to be clear, so when you checked in online for your cruise, you were able to book slots at that time.
Yeah, when you check in online to like book, your port arrival and all that, but more so like when you're booking excursions and like
Your
when you can book activities, you could also book character meet and greets. And they had the like normal frozen ones and all of that, but they had 3 additional days, so Star Wars Day and 2 other days where you could book an experience with Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, I think, and then the various droids, so you could like meet R2-D2 and C-3PO.
And could you book everyone?
You could if you wanted. We only did R2-D2 and C-3PO. Not that we didn't care about the others, but we're also like, there's probably going to be a ton of fun stuff, and we could literally meet all of these characters anytime we want at Disneyland.
So one last question. You guys are Silver Castaway. No problem as far as booking character experiences at the Silver level?
Actually, no, we couldn't get anything but the actual Star Wars Day, because probably for the reason that people want to do the other Star Wars activities, the ones that book up the fastest are the character excursions that happen on the days that aren't Star Wars Day at Sea. So when we were at Silver, all they had left were Star Wars Day at Sea. And then a day or two into booking, all of those were gone. And then when people who weren't Silver tried to book for our cruise, they weren't able to get reservations to those.
So did you get yours when you got on board?
Yeah, they used to give out physical tickets, but now it's just like they check your name off of a list.
Did you go to guest services that first day to get those other spots?
No, we didn't. You can. So let me frame it for people who weren't fortunate enough to get those. You could go to guest services and see if they had extra spots. And the day that you embark, they usually do have extra spots for character meet and greets for people who weren't able to reserve ahead of time. So you can do that. And this year, unlike on my Marvel Day at Sea cruise, they don't give you physical tickets to the character meet and greets. Instead, they have a person with like a tablet who checks off your cabin number. I think they even scan your key to the world card. And that's how you get admittance into these meet and greets.
Okay, just to wrap it back up before we get too far into the minutia, as far as at the Silver level, you were able to book character experiences on the Star Wars Day at Sea and not on the extra days. My guess is that frees up people that want to do those character meet and greets. Either the gold or people ahead of you were able to spread them out so that they could do other things on Star Wars Day at Sea besides just meeting the characters.
Yeah, because the bulk of the fun activities are on that day. So it's like if they're waiting in line to meet these characters, they're not getting to do the other fun Star Wars things.
Perfect. Okay, well, we talked about the cabin. Anything else about the cabin that we missed that you wanted to talk about?
No, I love verandas. I'm kind of nervous because the cruise that I booked with Christy that's sailing out of Mexico, we're doing inside for the first time. And I'm wondering if I'm going to miss my veranda. But you have to try new things, and I'm ready to try an inside and see if I like it.
And you do things so that you can squeeze a cruise in.
Yeah, totally.
So we talked about that. It's better to go on a cruise than to have a better cabin.
100%, which is my philosophy that I've just never actually tested.
But you guys are out and about quite a bit. Anawake and I and the kids and I have sailed once on an inside, then Anawake and I sailed once on an inside too, and we didn't mind it at all. It's a little bit dark. You kind of miss the the light coming in the morning and kind of knowing where you are, we kind of feel a little disoriented, but you can turn the TV on, and yeah, good for you guys for at least going on that cruise. So let's turn to your favorite subject. Let's talk about food.
Dining.
Did you guys stick to the main dining room each night for dinner, or did you do any of the specialty dining, or did you eat at Cabanas for dinner ever?
So we never ate at Cabanas for dinner. That's easy. You know that I love me some specialty dining. The nicer the food, the better. So we definitely did some specialty dining experiences.
Do tell.
So we did Palo brunch, and we had Palo dinner booked, but they ruined and thwarted my plan, which was very sad. Which is, I always do Palo dinner on Pirate Night.
Yeah,
because I don't like the Pirate Night menu, frankly. So that's what I had booked. I booked Palo dinner on Pirate Night. Well, it turns out that because of the Star Wars Day at Sea, they weren't serving the Pirate Night menu. And there was opportunity that night for me to try the famed chicken schnitzel. And so literally because of you, Christy,
because of chicken schnitzel,
I canceled a reservation at Palo because I wanted to try it. And also we were like, we're doing Palo brunch. We're doing the Remy dessert experience. So yeah, we decided to cancel Palo dinner so I could try my chicken schnitzel. And I will tell you, I liked it more than I liked a lot of other things.
So it wasn't like a favorite dish, but...
I would get it again for sure on that menu. It was my favorite thing I've tried off of that menu, I will say. I mean, listen, fried chicken is delicious, and chicken schnitzel is kind of like fried chicken. So, yeah.
It's like pan-fried chicken with onions. It's like, it's so good.
Yeah. Although, what you did not warn me, which I was very disturbed by, is that there was a giant anchovy rosette sitting on top of it.
No, I did not have any anchovy anything and anywhere near my food.
Well, I was with actually one of our table mates who, someone that traveled in a different party than ours, but was sat at our same table. We both ordered the chicken schnitzel, and we both were like, what is this on top of it? And she smelled it and was like, that smells horrible. And then she tried a little bit and she was like, and then our server said, oh, it's an anchovy. And
why would they do that?
I was like, kindly remove the anchovy from my chicken schnitzel with my fork. And then I ate it and it was delicious. So thank you for the recommendation. I'll probably still go to Palo next time.
Well, yeah, I would go to Palo over chicken schnitzel, but I would just probably move Palo and have chicken schnitzel and I can't say it today, and Palo. Okay, so you didn't have Palo dinner at all then?
No, we ended up not, but we did have Palo brunch, and Palo brunch was always as good as it always is. Chicken parm at Palo is the best. Yeah, Palo brunch, I highly recommend. It's beautiful. It's fun. You can do it on a sea day. It's like a 2-hour experience. You eat so much food, and it's really good food. So do the Palo brunch. And then the fun thing that I actually haven't heard talked about much by our listeners is we did the Remy dessert experience. And that's where you eat, in our case, 6 desserts, one after another in Remy. Mm-hmm. And here's my thoughts. If you are a picky person and the French food at Remy just seems too overwhelming for you, I think you should still do the dessert experience because it's not quite as overwhelming and you still get the experience of like 5-star dining. And when I say 5-star dining, I mean like you have like 3 servers per table, and every time they bring your food out, they sit down all the plates at the exact same moment. And the chef who prepared your food is literally standing right in front of you, telling you the history of the dish and why this dish was chosen and what the theming story is and all of that. And I will tell you, I ate like 4 of the best desserts I've ever had in my life and 2 like pretty good desserts. So
had you done Palo dinner before? Remy dinner before?
Haven't done Remy dinner yet, though I think we probably will at some point. But we had done the dessert before at Remy. And because we were bringing our mother-in-law this time, we were like, you have to try this. It's going to be amazing. And I will tell you, the 6 things that we got this time were completely different from the 6 things we got last time. So they change up that dessert menu constantly. And one of the things they serve us, the person said, the chef just invented this today. It's brand new. We've never served it to anybody before.
Was that
And
your
was actually my
favoriteest ones?
favorite.
Or okay.
Yeah, it was like my favorite. It was like a strawberry type thing with like a type of citrus that can only be found in a certain province, and it was so good.
And you have the plantains and banana allergy. Did that alter any of your desserts?
It didn't have to. The chef basically said, we were going to make this banana thing. Like last time we went to it, they were like, we were going to make this banana thing, but we didn't because you're here. And then, fun fact for you, Christy, there was someone with a gluten allergy. Oh, no, actually, I think they were vegan a couple tables over, and they had different desserts than everybody. So they accommodated that person. Though there was a sign in the Navigator that said that dietary restrictions couldn't be accommodated at Remy. So I don't exactly know what that means.
Really?
Yeah. Like maybe they just mean like certain dietary restrictions and they're trying to cover their butt, you know? Like,
yeah, interesting.
Depending on what you're allergic to, a prefix menu just won't work for you. But we saw them accommodating someone else's diet next to us. I mentioned my table mates. I would be remiss not to say that I now feel very close and bonded to a veterinarian and an IT person and a veterinarian assistant who lives somewhere in Philadelphia. And hello, if you're listening to the show. They were really amazing, fun table mates. We were glad that we got to rejoin them every day. And Disney totally paired us together because it was another group of 3 adults traveling together. It was like 2 groups of 3 adults, and Disney was like, you sit together. And we had a good time, and it was a good group of people. And one final note on our table mates. One of our table mates was vegan and had a very difficult time finding food that he enjoyed. So I would say that like Disney can probably step up its game in the vegan food department, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, vegan at Walt Disney World is becoming
much better.
Yeah, so I hope that will translate to the cruise ship soon.
I think it will. It just takes time. I think it will. Okay, Steve, I talked too much about food. What's next?
I love that talk about food. And thanks for going back into the table mates because I was going to ask you about that too. So, overall quality of food this time, Chris, compared to your last cruises?
Middle of the road, which is fine. I think I'm unfortunately getting the rap on this show that like I'm the co-host who's most critical of food, but it's just because I think like you're paying so much money that you really should be able to get hot, fresh food. And there were a couple times when it wasn't as hot or as fresh as I would want it. They got the brie right, Christy. I loved that brie.
I love that
and
brie too.
They got my favorite apple tart that's on the Royal Palace or Royal Court menu. And that apple tart literally changes my life every time I eat it. And it was real good this time too. So I will say like there are things that I've eaten in Disney Cruise Line where I'm like, that's one of the best things I've ever had. And there are things where I've eaten them that I've been like, this wasn't very good. But if you'll remember back to my Norwegian Cruise Line episode, that some of that food was like truly inedible. So I feel like my bar is set pretty middle of the road with Disney. And there was never anything that I felt like, oh, I can't eat this or wouldn't eat this. It was just some things were higher quality than others.
No, I love the fact that you have an opinion on it, and that's what we want to have here, is to bring not only our opinions, but our guests that come on the show as well, their opinions as well. And you know, food and port excursions, they're just so subjective depending upon what your taste
100%.
is. Yeah. So
yeah, totally.
I know we all appreciate your opinion on food. So besides dining, what were some of the things that you have cruised with Lisa, your mother-in-law, before. What were some of the things that you guys were excited to do, and what were some of the things that you experienced on board before we get to the port excursions?
I was excited to see Aladdin because I used to work at Disneyland. I was sort of there during the heyday of the Aladdin show at Disney's California Adventure, and the show on the ship is very similar to that show. So I was excited to sort of have a nostalgia moment with that. Also, they added Frozen this past fall to the fantasy, so I was excited to see how that show translated. I gotta be honest, everyone, I am a real sucker for whatever that show is. I think it's Disney Believe, but where like the dad has a flower and he doesn't have time for his daughter because he's worried about his flower and he doesn't believe in magic. I know that the synopsis I just told you, you're like, okay, that's a fun story, but it really like gets me in the cry bones. I don't know what it is, but there's a moment at the end of that show where like every time I've seen it, I'm teary-eyed and I'm like, what's going on? Why am I crying right now? I'm fully invested in that little story about the flower. I like Disney's Believe as a show more than even probably I liked the Aladdin show or the Frozen show, which might make me like a true outlier here, but the entertainment was okay.
So you just thought the shows were okay?
Yeah,
would you see them again?
I would see them again, sure, if it had been a while. If I were like cruising maybe next year, I don't know that I would go and see Aladdin again or Frozen again right away. But for nostalgia reasons, I'll see anything twice or three times. But I should flag for everybody that Marcus Monroe, a friend of the show, was on my ship. And I got to see Marcus Monroe on the preview night with the like Fantasy Come Alive or whatever they call it. And then I got to see Marcus Monroe's adult only show, which ask yourself what on earth an adult juggling show is. And that's what it was.
If we weren't so long into the show, I would definitely want more information about what an adult juggling show is. But I guess I'll have to wait and see. Did you go up and introduce yourself to Marcus?
So, Marcus, if you're listening, you were like stealthy and hidden this entire cruise. I could never find you, but I wanted to. But no, I literally couldn't introduce myself because Marcus would disappear behind the curtain and then be gone.
So he's a magician and a juggler.
Yeah. And then they had buckets and boards, which I've heard people really love, and I thought they were fun. I also went to the Buckets and Boards adult show. And ask yourself what a percussion adult show might be, and that's what it was.
So was it like swearing and beating a bucket? Like what?
I'm afraid to say because Steve might censor it. No, I'm kidding.
He might.
It really was. It really was not anything adult-y. I mean, actually, I don't know what I'm saying. There was a moment where one of the Buckets and Boards guys like took his shirt off and was wearing pasties. So I suppose it was maybe a bit more risque. But it was more so just like telling jokes that like kids wouldn't get and making fun of audience members, which obviously kids probably wouldn't like very much. So it was that sort of thing. And Marcus Monroe was like so funny because how on earth can you juggle in the tube where the ceiling is like 6 inches above your head? He was more so making fun of Disney Cruise Line for having him do an adult show at all, which I loved. And our cruise host also loved as well.
And then you also, since we're on entertainment, let's stick with entertainment. You also did some other game showy type activities, right?
Okay, so we tried to do trivia because I'm determined to get a medal before Steve. Wait, Steve, have you gotten a medal before?
We've got one.
Oh, well then I can't ever achieve my goals. Thank you for telling me.
Just rained on your parade, didn't I?
Yeah.
No, you have to get two before Steve can get two.
Well, that'll probably happen.
Yeah, fine. Then I can't beat you on that. But what I can say is that we tried to go to trivia and it was so packed that we couldn't go. And that was like a Disney, adult Disney trivia in the pub. So on my cruise, they were showing the Oscars because the Oscars happened.
Right.
And they had like an Oscars viewing party in...
Where was that at?
I think it's called Ooh La La. Is that the one that looks like a carousel? No.
Yeah, no. Well,
La Piazza.
Yeah, Ooh La La is the champagne bar, right?
Yeah, so this was like La Piazza, the thing right next to it that looks like a carousel. And they showed it there, but they also showed it in the Buena Vista Theater. And it was kind of fun to go in there and just see a bunch of people with like glasses of wine watching the Oscars on a giant movie screen on a Disney ship. And Toy Story won, so people were excited about that. They did a performance from Frozen on the Oscars this year too. So yeah, it was fun to watch the Oscars as sort of like an event on the ship.
Did they have any like specialty food or drinks or anything like that?
No, there really wasn't anything except like, hey, Oscar viewing party,
right?
Popcorn and drinks, that sort of thing.
For charge.
For charge, right, exactly. And I will say that it was like, it certainly isn't probably how many people would attend, let's say, the Super Bowl or other televised events. I would say like maybe in total, there was probably like 200 people on the ship, period, who were like interested in the Oscars and like watching them.
Anything else about the entertainment stuff you want to talk about, Chris?
No, I think that's a pretty good overview of entertainment on the ship.
Okay, well, this is a Star Wars Day at Sea, And I know there's a lot of things that go on during that day. I think it's pretty cool the night before when they start the theming of it. Can you talk about that and then just some of the highlights that you guys had the next day? And this took place on the last day for you guys, the second to last day, the day at sea before you went to Castaway Cay.
It was after the night after San Juan. The night before, there's something sort of fun Star Wars moment that happens in the lobby. Folks used to say that this was a big secret, but Leslie was our cruise director, and Leslie was like, come to the Atrium at 10:15. So like there was not really a big secret about what was going to happen there. But, you know, I will say get there a bit early if you want a good view. It's not like a major event, but it is a moment where something cool and dark-sidey happens for the ship that sort of sets up what the storyline is going to be for the next day. For those of you who don't know, the storyline is sort of like that the villains of the Star Wars world have taken over the ship and they've taken control of it. That's an interesting sort of moment. And then you go to bed, and when you wake up the next morning, everything is Star Wars music, and they have little Star Wars treats and Star Wars themed things up over at Cabanas. And the Navigator has lots of different Star Wars activities that are very unique to that day at sea. So yeah, I will say we were at breakfast in Cabanas, and one of the funniest things happened. I overheard someone at the table next to me, a dad, very concerned dad, asking their son, why are you a fan of the dark side? I don't understand. And the son's like, because the dark side's awesome. And the dad's like, but don't you think the light side is better? And the kid's like, no, the dark side's the best thing. I love Darth Vader and I love all the, and I could see the parents being like, wait a minute, is our child like going to grow up to be a bad person? And I sort of just like sat at my table laughing because I just thought it was so funny. But there's lots of people dressed up, lots of costumes. It's a very, very, very fun themed day. I sure didn't because I wanted to be comfortable, but I did wear a Star Wars Spirit jersey and a Star Wars necklace, Rose Tico's necklace to be specific, for those of you out there who are a little bit nerdy like me.
What were some of the things that, going on this cruise, what were some of the things you were excited to do on this day, thinking about it ahead of time, since I know you're a huge Star Wars fan?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping they would have like talks from people from the Star Wars world, and they didn't, which I guess is fine. But I feel like if you're going to say that something is a Star Wars day at sea, it would be cool to have a little bit more of a like, here's someone who directed or wrote an episode of a Star Wars TV show, or they do that for other cruise things on Disney.
They've definitely had it before.
Yeah, I think even they've had it before, which is why I was primed to be expecting it, but they didn't have it on this sailing, and I've heard not on any of these sailings. I was excited to try the Star Wars Day at Sea menu. I love it when Disney is forced to come up with a fresh menu, and they had to do that for this. Also, I had heard about this thing where they try to tell all 3 of the original trilogy storylines in 20 minutes. They have 3 actors who do the like nighttime entertainment come out and try to do a speed telling of the entire original Star Wars trilogy. And that was super funny and really fun to watch. They're reenacting it and using props and stuff. And they have a 20-minute countdown clock, which was cool. They held it in the Atrium twice.
That's like a Star Wars storytelling I could get behind.
Yeah.
The whole thing in 20 minutes?
20 minutes and then you could be on your way. Yeah.
Oh, I think if that was all you did that day, Christy, you would be like, and I had my Star Wars fill for the day.
Hey, I went and did the Chewbacca and the R2-D2 and C-3PO meet and greet, and I loved it. So I did those things.
Yay. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
They had this thing where it was like Star Wars 101 for people on the ship who don't know very much about Star Wars. And Seth and I went just because we wanted to see what it was all about. And I sort of don't recommend. It was like 30 minutes of just like way too much information that didn't say anything about the actual stories. It was literally just like, and this is Boba Fett, and this is Jabba the Hutt, and this is, and it's like just showing pictures of people without context is like not very helpful, I don't think. So I don't know. I would maybe not do that again. There was also, so Leslie was our cruise director, and she was cracking me up because she sort of seemed like she doesn't actually like Star Wars all that much or care about it. And so like her fun little like comments of like, this thing is happening. And like, I think Disney probably also wants her to appear to like Star Wars. So like, just watching the subtext of her being like, not knowing very much about the Star Wars extended universe actually made me laugh. I think Leslie's a great cruise director, and I hope that she does a very long career at DCL.
We love her as well. She's amazing. So yeah,
she's super, super, super fun. And also Tim is his name, was our assistant cruise director. And we knew him from bingo on our very first ever cruise DCL ship, because he would always have shimmy with Timmy time during bingo, and everyone would shimmy. And now I'm like, look at you, Timmy, you've grown. You're going up in the company. So it was fun. It was fun to like see some cast members who we've like known from other ships and see how their careers are advancing.
What's your favorite memory from the Star Wars Day at Sea?
Okay, that's a good one. I would say my favorite memory from the Star Wars Day at Sea is the like firework show at the end of the night, because just seeing Star Wars fireworks with the Star Wars music, it just makes you tingle and feel happy and feel like nerdy and excited. And also when you're on a Disney ship and there's fireworks happening, you're like, this is something I know I can't get on any other cruise line. And that feels special. So I felt really good about that.
What did they have on that Star Wars menu, Chris?
Well, the menu was themed around different planets. So it was like, try things from the planet of Naboo, or like, try things from this planet. And then what was served on that planet was not like, it was just American or like various cuisines. So like one planet had like fried chicken, which actually ended up being what I got because it just sounded really good. And it came with a biscuit, and I was craving a biscuit.
The kids menu, when we did it, was like, that were little masks that the kids could wear of the different Star Wars people. Is that what they still had, or did they have something different?
Yeah. No, they had that. And they also had masks for people who did the Porgs on Board thing. Seth and I tried to do it, but it ended up being harder than we thought. So maybe we're not as smart as children, because it's definitely aimed at children. Yeah, they have like a mask where you put it over your eyes and you look like a Porg, and you're going around the ship doing a scavenger hunt to find all the things the Porgs have done to the ship. So yeah, they had like little things like that for the kids, masks and like treats. I think in the studio, or why did I say studio? In the kids club, they had some Star Wars theming things as well. Maybe even like a Star Wars Super Sloppy Science type thing. So yeah, I would say food was good. Wasn't maybe the best menu of all the menus, but it was fun to eat Star Wars food, and I liked it.
Okay, well, let's move on to the ports. You guys are headed out to the Eastern Caribbean, your first time going to Tortola and then San Juan. What did you guys have planned in each one of the ports, and kind of give us a highlight of each?
I think y'all have been underselling Tortola, because it is literally a lush, tropical, mountainous island. And as you're sailing up to it, it's like rising out of the sea in all of its beautiful glory. And I feel like no one's told me about this. I haven't heard people being like, Tortola is this like beautiful, magical thing. And so when we were getting there, I was like, hold on, why is this one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen? And we were really excited because we had this excursion where we get our own Jeep. So the three of us were in a Jeep, and I was the driver. And Tortola is the British Virgin Islands, so you drive on the other side of the road. Yeah, the opposite side of the road. And you follow in a caravan, and you all have like walkie-talkies. And the tour guide tells you all about the island, but through a walkie-talkie. The color of your Jeep is like the code name for your car. So like we were in a green one, so they called us Mojito. And they would be like, Mojito, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And we would be like, we think Silver Eagle is the best, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like a fun little, I don't know, I felt like I was as far into military lingo as I could possibly get.
Was it advertised as that?
No, it was like mega surprise when we got there. I didn't know anything. I knew we were going to be driving a Jeep and touring the island. But what I didn't know is that we were going to like have a little like walkie-talkie bonding moment with everybody. And it was a long excursion, like 5 hours. It included a stop at a beach though. So like we went swimming and spent a good amount of time on the beach. If I haven't sent you yet, I have to send you this picture of this dog. Like someone who lives in one of the houses near the beach. It's a very secluded beach. Like there was nothing around this beach. So when the dog ran up to us, we were like, what's going on? But it was this sweet, beautiful dog. And the dog wanted to lay in the shade of our umbrella. So it just sat with us all day, and it was really fun. And we stopped at like a shell museum, and we literally drove like a full loop around the island. So we got to see all of the island, and we went to the highest point on the island. And honestly, if you've never been to Tortola, it's just gorgeous. It's like
those roads are like, sorry that I'm interrupting this, because I'm just thinking about what you're saying. Those roads are insane. So you drove this Jeep on the actual roads where like the people drive?
Yes. And I will say, I'm glad that Seth and Lisa weren't driving, because I think they would have been much more uncomfortable. I was like into the like fun risks of driving, but the only thing that helped us in what you're saying though is that we were like a caravan of Jeeps, and we were somewhere in the middle, so like we could see what everyone was doing ahead of us or behind us. And but yes,
huge hills, big turns, cliffs on the side.
There was all of that, but we survived. I am here to tell the tale, and I loved it. I'm like, I would do it again, honestly. It was a little pricey, but I would do it again.
Who would you recommend this tour for? Is this something more for adults, or could you see families taking this tour as well?
Well, there was one family on our tour, and the kids were not having it. So maybe adults. They were just like, they were like brothers who seemed to hate each other. And so there was lots of like, I hate Michael, and Michael being like, don't worry, names were changed. But like kids just screeching at each other. And that's one of the great things about this, is that we were in our own little world in our own little Jeep, and we only had to hear all of that stuff when we were on the bus on our way to the Jeeps and back from the Jeeps. So I would say, like, if you want to have a bit of a private family time too, if you're a group of 4 or 3 even, you'll probably get your own Jeep, and that's what we did. So it was nice to be able to like have our own little car and feel sort of independent, but not be fully independent. And like I said, it was beautiful, and it was a full day. I think we didn't do much in Tortola besides that.
I'm with you, Chris. I think Tortola is beautiful. When we went to Tortola and St. Thomas, Tortola really took the cake for us, I guess, to make a food reference. But I thought it was a really beautiful island, and much more quieter, it seemed like, compared to St. Thomas.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Okay, so from Tortola, you guys are on to San Juan, Old San Juan. What did you guys have planned there?
This is the part of the trip that some things took a little bit of a like unfortunate turn just for us personally. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to go to the rainforest that morning, but in San Juan, it's American territory. And so we had cell service, and we got some news right as we were about to head out that a member of our family had passed away unexpectedly. And so our family sort of shifted gears, and Disney, the reason I tell this story, I know it's a bit of a personal thing, what I'm talking about, but the reason why I want to tell this story on the podcast is because Disney took care of us completely. We had already checked in for the excursion, and they refunded everything. They like took it all off of our account, made it like it was zero pressure, and made sure that like we felt safe and comfortable, and made sure that like if we needed to call anybody or talk to anybody, we would be able to. So we did a lot of time just around the ship that morning, figuring out what was going on. And then to sort of clear our heads and get some space, we did our own little just sort of like walking tour of Old San Juan. We walked around Old San Juan for maybe 3 or 4 hours, got some popsicles, saw some of the like beautiful sights of Old San Juan, and got back on the ship. So I will say, for my note or my takeaway would be Disney really took care of us. And also, if you don't have an excursion in San Juan, just walking around Old San Juan, you could probably fill a day with that. There's a lot of really cool stuff. It's really beautiful and fun. And we found this little like poetry bookstore type thing and spent a good while in there. And I would say it's super unique. And there's beautiful, beautiful forts. Also, I almost left Seth and Lisa in the afternoon just by myself to go to the fort, because it's walking distance from the ship as well. If you wanted something cool to do, but close to port, you could even walk to this really beautiful fort.
So does the ship park pretty much right downtown there?
Yeah, literally you get off. And also it's funny because Tortola doesn't have like fast food restaurants or chains or things like that, but San Juan is not that way. Like right across the street from the port is like a Walgreens. And then we also went to a Starbucks. And I would say more than almost any of the other ports I've been to in the Caribbean, except for maybe like Key West. San Juan is very like, I don't know, there's lots of chains and retail stores and things like that.
And Steve, there's a Subway.
I was going to ask that. I was actually going to ask that.
I literally texted Steve and Christy being like, hey, Steve, found your Subway, because there was a Subway right in the old San Juan like area.
Well,
And one of our listeners was cruising the week. Well, it was different cruise than the same. It's potential that she was cruising the same week as you. And she sent me the message of the Subway as well. A picture.
So funny.
Yeah.
Steve, you'll never live it down.
That's good to
Never.
know. Next time we cruise to San Juan, I'll just skip Palo that night and get a Subway.
Oh my God.
Good call.
Hey,
I think we need to kick you off the podcast.
well, after your stop at Subway in San Juan, and you guys have a day at sea, you experience the Star Wars Day at Sea, and then you're on to Castaway Cay. What are some of the things that you guys like to do in Castaway Cay, Chris? You and Seth and Lisa.
Every time I've been to Castaway Cay, I've snorkeled. This time the snorkeling wasn't like super great or clear, but I like snorkeling. We always spend most of our day on Serenity Bay, as far
Which
away
for
from like
our
children.
listeners, our listeners that might not know, that's the adults only beach.
Right. So we spent all of our day pretty much at the adults only beach.
Do you snorkel from there too?
You can, though I have a harrowing story to tell you all. There was a like 6 or 7 foot shark. And so the lifeguards had to make everyone get out of the water. And it was like very much like a scene from Jaws where they were like, get out of the water, there's a shark. And then
For real?
Yeah, and then another lifeguard had to jump on a jet ski and like zoom across the water towards where the shark was and use the jet ski to try to scare the shark away. And what's even sadder is people who were closer to the shark said that the shark was eating a stingray, and it was a stingray that I had made friends with earlier and had been following around.
What?
So now I'm like, oh no, Mr. Ray just got eaten by a hammerhead shark, and all of this literally really did happen, like on the beach that day. And I was like, that's interesting. Also, there were people really far out who didn't hear. So it was this weird moment of like all this splashing and running in and all these like people running out of the water. And then 2 people way out in the distance, like floating on inner tubes, not knowing that anything was happening. So I was like, I really hope nothing happens. I will say for everybody, the likelihood, especially of these types of sharks, the types that exist in like coral reefs and in the Caribbean, of attacking a human is like very, 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 very slim. So I don't think anyone's safety was at risk. I don't want anyone to take that away from this story. But the lifeguards obviously didn't want the shark swimming around with people. And so the shark was not hurt. The jet ski just sort of like followed behind the shark to scare it out of the bay. So yeah, that's what happened. It was the talk of the beach all day. It was a harrowing shark moment. And the incident actually happened while I was snorkeling over at the other beach. So when Seth and Lisa told me about it, I was like, darn it, I missed something exciting. From what I hear, it was just like a very fun moment for a minute, scary moment for maybe a second, and then everyone just wanted to talk about it for the rest of the cruise.
Did people go back into the water afterwards?
Yeah. Everyone was back in the water within like 10 minutes. It was like, okay, there was a shark, now we're done. But the lifeguard who went to scare the shark away did say it was like bigger than 6 feet. It was a very big shark for that area.
I've never been over to Serenity Bay, being with the family all the time. So, is it the same over there as far as the amount of lifeguards that they have over the water? So, for people who've never been to Castaway Cay, especially on the family side, I mean, they have lifeguards all throughout the water. I mean, they go way out over the snorkeling, so they're very watchful of not only the swimmers, but being able to pick up on things like that, like sharks being in the Castaway Cay area. Is it the same over at Serenity Bay?
Not quite. I think there's like 1 or maybe 2. It's like a tower that's right in the very middle of the beach.
Okay.
That's how it is at the beach where the cabanas are as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Over for snorkeling, what Steve's talking about, there's literal towers out in the middle of the snorkeling lagoon, so that if someone were to have a concern about drowning right there, a lifeguard could be to you very quickly. But where we were, not so much. And the lifeguard is up high above the water, in part to be able to see for sea life. If anything dangerous comes into the bay, they will notify everybody.
Okay. Anything else on Castaway Cay that you guys did that day then?
No, but I found out a fun fact. On the ship going to Castaway Cay, the like days leading up to it, they have to bake 7,000 cookies. Can you believe that? Those giant cookies. They bake 7,000 of those cookies because that's how many we eat.
Oh, like the cookies that are served at the buffet.
Yeah, but they're huge. Like I think because
I don't even
the restaurants,
know because I can't eat them.
Because you can't eat them. But the restaurant called Cookies and Cookies Too. They call it that.
The cookies,
and they have those cookies, so there's like synergy there. But that makes people really crave a cookie. And so they have to make 7,000 of those giant chocolate chip cookies. Can you believe it?
I'm trying to do the math on that. Like, that's like 2 or 3 cookies per person, I guess, on the ship, depending on how many people are on it.
And remember, there's people that can't eat cookies.
And there's people who won't even eat them. So some of them are eating like 4 of them. I was like, okay. Wow. So that was my fun fact for Castaway.
Well, from Castaway Cay, you guys are back to Port Canaveral. Anything about disembarkation before we kind of get an overview of your guys' cruise again?
So disembarkation was super smooth. The one thing I love about late dining, or dining that happens in the middle of the night, as Christy would say, is that you get to leave the ship a little bit later if you want, because you don't even get served breakfast in the main dining room until 8 a.m. And everyone else, I think, has to go at like 6 or 6:30. It's super early for the
If you go
seating.
to the main dining room, I always just like to remind people you don't have to go and eat in the main dining room.
You could go to Cabanas, or you could just not eat at all if you don't want to. There are plenty of people who do express walk-off. And just because you finished eating doesn't mean you have to physically exit the ship. I saw people sort of sitting around, biding their time. One thing I will say is we grabbed a porter, and that porter was like super helpful and stood in line with us. And so if you're worried that you have a lot of bags or like you don't know where you're going, also we were renting a car that morning. And the porter literally took us from the bottom of the escalator off the ship to the bus to the car rental and helped us load all of our bags. Just make sure you bring money to tip. And the rental car company was literally already waiting there. So from like ship to rental car company was maybe 15 minutes.
Wow.
So it was very, very smooth for us.
Who did you guys use, rental car company-wise?
I think we used Budget.
And did you do something else during the day? Or why did you rent?
Avis. Sorry, we used Avis. The reason we did is because we were going to be there for a whole nother day. And I have family in Florida. So I wanted to be able to drive around and see different family members and also go to Disney Springs. I cannot be in Florida and not eat at Homecoming in Disney Springs. So I knew that we were going to be going to Disney Springs to do that. And also I wanted to be able to see some family and just like drive ourselves to the airport the next morning. So that's why we did a rental car. It was just going to be easier. And honestly, rental car is in the long run cheaper if you have more than 2 or 3 people. You can always find a better rate as a rental car, even then sometimes in an Uber all the way from Port Canaveral to Orlando. So just flagging that as an option for you if you're trying to save a bit of money and you're comfortable driving. And in Florida, rental car works pretty well.
We love the rental cars just because our flight usually doesn't leave till 4 o'clock in the afternoon if we're leaving that day. And there's nothing worse for us than to get off a ship at 9 in the morning, go straight to the airport and sit there for hours. So we've used it to go to Disney Springs and just to kind of, explore around a little bit rather than just spending those 6 or 7 hours at the airport. So we've loved doing the rental cars. It's always worked pretty well. Well, anything else about the cruise? I've got a couple of follow-up questions, and then Christy, if you have any questions as well that we didn't touch on yet, Chris.
I have my notes. So just for people who like the numbers as Steve collects, there were 3,707 people on our ship from 30 different countries and 1,500 crew from 70 different countries. The top nationalities were 3,000 of us from the U.S., 500 from Canada, 36 from the UK, 32 from Argentina, and 29 from Mexico. So that's sort of like the makeup of our ship. Also, I ran on the roller coaster, or I called it the Hawaiian roller coaster ride on the first sea day, because I had no idea that the treadmill was so precarious when the boat was rocking. I didn't think about it, and so I was up running on that. And Actually, while I was running, the song from Lilo and Stitch, Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride came on. And I was like really trying hard not to fall off that treadmill. So I'll flag for you on sea days. You may want to switch to an elliptical or something else if the water's kind of rough. Another fun fact is I was in the front row for Aladdin, and there was one point where if I had any trouble breathing, I would highly recommend not sitting that close because we were literally surrounded by fog from the stage and couldn't see anything for like 3 minutes because they have a fog effect for the flying over the world. So if you're sensitive to fog, I would take a seat further back.
Could you see them actually flying over the world then? Did you miss that whole magical part?
No, I was literally, all I could see was literally white fog all around me and like coughing. Everybody around us.
Maybe that's why you didn't like the shows as much.
You might be right. The thing is, I liked the shows. I don't want to undersell that. I just want to acknowledge that, like, my favorite show happened to be that flower show. I don't even know what it's called, and I'm over here, like, still getting emotional thinking about that little girl. Anyway, that's just my, those were, like, the things that I took notes on, as Steve usually does on the first night of the cruise, where they tell you, like, here's the stuff that's interesting. And then also I remembered specifically writing a note down because I thought it was so funny that the Hawaiian roller coaster song came on while I was trying to survive the treadmill on the sea day.
I actually kind of love that. It's kind of a challenge as you're running and it's moving back and forth. And you can see
your body has to adjust.
Yeah, every step. It's like, it can't be good for your body.
So
I did that once, and I don't think I've done it on a sea day again.
So a couple final thoughts here. You've now been on the Dream and the Fantasy. Any thoughts between the two ships? Although they're sister ships, they are different in some ways. Any thoughts between the two?
Yeah, so I like the Tube better than the like Butterfly Evolution or whatever it's called on the Dream. So the adult only area, I think I actually would take bits and pieces from each and to make up like my ideal adult only area, but they're both pretty cool. The layout of the ship is almost identical otherwise. On our cruise, they never had Satellite Falls running, which was sort of a bummer because I really like the Satellite Falls area. Like you could go up there, but the waterfall was never working. What else? The aqueduct. I love that. I could do the aqueduct like 100 times and still not get bored with it. So yeah, I would say like those perks that you only find on the Dream and the Fantasy, I feel like they're pretty equal between the two of them. And the layout is very, very, very similar. But yeah, I wouldn't give a nod to either of them in terms of like one being better than the other. I just think they're a little different in that adults only area.
Was it windy when you guys were sailing towards Tortola?
It was windy. It was also rocky. The seas were a bit rough. Enough that I needed to take Dramamine. I never got sick, but just needed to have a dose of Dramamine in my system for the first 3 or 4 days.
That is quite a ways to get to Tortola. Mm-hmm. And I think that the ships are going, or the Fantasy is usually going at a pretty good clip to get out there. So it seems to me, I mean, we've only done it once. Obviously, Christy, you've done it more than we have, but it seems to me that might be some of the reasons why they don't have Satellite Falls going, because it was really windy up there both of the 3 sea days it took us to get out to Tortola. And then finally, I guess, any advice for people going on a Star Wars Day at Sea sailing?
I would say even if you're just a passive Star Wars fan, do it. It's fun. It's cool. It gives you something different. If you're one of those people who are like, I'm a DCL mega fan and I just care about the cruising, why not do these cruises that offer little fun, different days just to like mix it up a bit? You know, we've done Marvel, we've done Star Wars. We're doing Halloween on the High Seas in October. And if we do the Panama Canal cruise the year after, it's usually a very merry time in November. So like we're excited to see these little additions that they add to the ship just for those days. But I think it's because we're so used to the product now that we want and crave little additions, if that makes sense. So even if you're just a passive fan, it's fun to see what they do different. And if you're a big fan, manage your expectations, because it's not going to be like the same level of like Star Wars Celebration where you're getting to like meet actors or meet people who actually made the films and wrote the scripts and things like that. But it is really cool, really fun, and it's nice to be around fellow nerds.
That actually made. I wasn't expecting it. And I was drinking. Sorry.
You've killed Christy.
You don't like it when I
so
say
sorry.
fellow nerds?
I just, for some reason, was not expecting that at the very end. And first taking my drink and then choking.
That's so funny.
I got a tear in my eye.
Well, just another amazing sailing for you and Seth and your mother-in-law, Lisa. So what's next for you guys? What are you and Seth up to next, Chris?
We're doing a back-to-back out of San Diego that sails Baja California. So it's a 2-night cruise followed by a 5-night cruise to make it a 7-night cruise. We're super excited. We'll be gold by the end of that endeavor. We wanted to be gold before our Panama Canal cruise so that we could do the extra benefits that gold members get. Also, Seth and I, even though we live so close to Mexico, haven't gotten to explore Mexico together. So we're pretty excited to do that. And also Tiana's place, and also beignets, and also San Diego's beautiful. So I'm super excited about that, but that's not happening till October. So in the meantime, I'll be I'm back to living vicariously through all of you.
Dead silence.
We should definitely keep that dead silence.
No.
Don't even edit it out.
I kind of like it actually too. Sometimes it's fun to be goofy. Well, that sounds good. And you have Disneyland in your backyard, so you'll go there.
Oh, well, I should say I have plenty of Disney opportunities ahead of me. And we're getting our new parade.
Yeah, you're getting all the good stuff.
Yeah, we're getting our new parade this week. I'm going to go see it next Friday.
Nice.
With Star Wars celebrations coming this summer there too as well. So a lot of things.
Oh yeah, I got the things. I'm excited.
I guess as we wrap it up, Chris, awesome. I'm glad you guys had such a great time on your Star Wars Days at Sea on the beautiful Disney Fantasy for the first time. And I guess I look forward to living vicariously with everybody else as they come on and we talk about their cruises as well. So thanks for your thoughts today, and we'll see you guys next time on the next DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.